How can we use fashion to build a better world? This is the Leaders of Transformation podcast. And on this show, we interview difference makers and world changers who are disrupting for good. I'm your host, Nicole Jansen, and our guest today is Ian Bentley. He is the co founder and CEO of Parker Clay, which is a manufacturer, a multi channel retailer, and now one of the largest employers of women in fashion in one of the fastest growing economies in Africa. Today, we're going to be discussing the future of fashion, how Ian and his wife got started, how they became one of the largest, also the largest exporters of finished leather goods from Ethiopia to the world, and more importantly, how they are empowering women to create a better life for themselves and their families. Ian, welcome to the Leaders Transformation. We're glad you're here today.
Thanks for having me, Nicole. We're super excited to be able to share more.
My pleasure. And I've got to tell you, your bags are beautiful, and I just absolutely love them, and I'm looking forward to getting my own and enjoying that. They are really top notch, and so but I know there's so much more to it than beauty. So let's talk about Parker Clay, kind of a little bit more about how you got started and what's it all about.
Yeah, it's a fun story, and it's also a crazy one. It's been a huge journey for us in starting Parker Clay. My wife and I, we actually met in high school, so we're high school sweethearts, and met in high school, started dating. We went to college together, so we grew up in Santa Barbara, California, went to college down in San Diego, and we got married while we were still in college, actually, and had the opportunity to start our careers in San Diego, both in business. My wife is a designer. I was more in the sales and marketing world. And we got pregnant with our first son. My first son was Parker, and then came Clay. So hence Parker Clay were my first two born sons. And we talked about in terms of growing our family, what that would look like beyond them. And we even talked about that while we were dating, and ultimately decided adoption was a path that we wanted to take with our family. And so we did a bunch of research on countries really all over the world and landed on Ethiopia as a place that we wanted to expand our family and adopt from. And that was what ultimately brought us to Ethiopia, was this beautiful little girl. Her name is Selah. She was just a couple months old. And, it was, I think a big part of the adoption process is really at the heartbeat of Parker Clay. And part of it started with just, I think sometimes with stories, we get caught up in statistics and numbers and data, and often those are faceless and nameless. And what was personal for us with Parker and Clay were, these are my two boys. And if Parker or Clay didn't have mom or dad there to take care of them, I would hope that the community and people would show up and do everything they could to be there for my sons. And to think that there's kids in the world that don't have that really kind of shook us. And so that was ultimately what kind of led us to confirming that adoption process. And we went there in 2011 to adopt our little girl. And about a year after adopting her, bringing her home, which that's a whole nother story, is just the adoption story once we're there and the people we got to meet. But when we came home, we just felt like there was more to the story. And we wanted to get involved. We wanted to, ultimately, we recognized there was a lot of women who said, "Hey, we don't want charity. We don't want handouts. We want jobs. We want opportunities." And that really stuck with us. And we met this group that was working to help women out of prostitution and trafficking. And they were saying just that. And so a year after we brought our daughter home, or less than a year, my family and I bought one-way tickets and literally sold everything we owned, got tickets, and moved to Ethiopia to primarily work with these women to create job opportunities. And if you can believe it, like Parker Clay, my sons were in existence, they were born, but the business was not the reason we moved there. The reason we moved there was to find opportunities for these women. And it was about a year into living in Ethiopia, we discovered the leather industry, and then ultimately made some bags and launched the business Parker Clay.
Wow. So That's really interesting because it sounds to me like you had the traditional start to your life and then something just took this detour. And it's so interesting how it often will come in the service of others. That's where we find our purpose. And not to go down a rabbit hole because there's so much that we can talk about here with you and with Parker Clay and specifically what you're doing. But just this idea of getting at a lot of people are nowadays saying like, what's my purpose? What's my purpose?
Mm.
And when you go out and you serve people, you'll find your purpose. You'll find your joy. And I hear that in your story. So that is awesome.
100%. And if I could just say, when we moved to Ethiopia, we both left significant careers, ones that were going in all the right directions. We had bought our first home, we had our first two children, all of those kind of dream scenarios, right, of what we can do. And it didn't really make logical sense to leave those careers and move to Ethiopia. And I think that that's something I would encourage people to think about. When we feel that tug, sometimes we don't know how to respond. Sometimes we don't know how to go, oh gosh, what do I do with this? And honestly, sometimes it's taking that first step, and sometimes it's a scary one. Um, but I think it's important to really understand what our purpose is, and to finding that, if you can find it with a vocational skill and kind of marry these things together, it's life changing. And frankly, it was life changing, just even impacting a few of the women's lives. And if that was it, it would have been enough. But to be able to be where we're at and impacting hundreds is just a dream. It's huge.
So were you both on board just out of curiosity? Because a lot of times somebody has the idea and the other one's like, you want to do what? You want to move to where?
Good question. Yeah, and it was an extreme enough move where we knew we both had to be 100% behind it, because that would have been the wrong place to go 9,000 miles away and then go, wait a second, you didn't really want to be here. Um, we Brittany and I have a good level of being able to talk through difficult things like that. And it's funny because some things we're not in agreement on. We're going to have to talk through it. But when this came up, we both could kind of have that sense, looking at each other, knowing there's something more here. And when we knew that it was the right thing, and we even kind of stepped out and said, hey, let's just sell it. Let's have a garage sale. Everything's sold. We don't need two cars. Let's sell a car. It sold like the next day. Some really incredible things started to happen that felt like it was a huge confirmation that we were going in the right direction. And so that gave us even more confidence that we were going in the right way.
So you had that grace. I hear there's like a grace and a favor on it where it's just, oh, doors are opening up for you. Yeah, that's cool. So you get there, you got your family, your land there, and you said it was about a year, and then you figured out, and discovered the leather good industry. Sort of walk us through that journey and how Parker Clay actually came to be, and kind of bring us up even to speed us to where it is today.
Today, sure. Yeah, so when we moved there, we were working with a group of women called the Lilta Women at Risk. It's run by an Ethiopian woman, and has been helping women out of prostitution trafficking for 20 plus years, doing beautiful work with counseling, rehabilitation, and about 90+% of these women that graduate from this program do not go back into prostitution. So incredible success. But the issue was always, how do you create sustainable work for them to ensure that they wouldn't go back into that? Because it was never by choice. It was always, I'm not going to let my children starve, right? Or I'm going to make sure they go to school, they have food. And so when we were looking around for opportunities, they had started to work on some textile industry, scarves, things like that. And it was popular, but it wasn't huge. And so we were always thinking about what other market product could we create that could create more demand to employ even more women. And about a year into living in Ethiopia, we were out shopping for Brittany's birthday and went to a small boutique, found this little leather bag. Inside, there was a tag that said made in Ethiopia. And on the backside, it was a phone number. And so for both Brittany and I, we looked at the bag and went, that's kind of cool. And we're surprised it was made in Ethiopia, and then certainly surprised it had the guy's phone number on it. But we called him and started asking about the leather industry, things like that. And he's like, Ian, do you not see the goats and the cows and the sheep? They're everywhere. Like, what do you mean? Where does the leather come from? And he's like, it's right here. And I'm thinking, well, is it good quality? And so we went to a tannery and they were loading a container, a shipping container with leather. And I asked the owner of the tannery where it was going, and he goes, that's going to Italy. And that was like a huge light bulb to go, wait, if you kind of think of a few brands that are made in Italy, they've done a great job at branding, marketing that label and with some well-known brands. But where is the material sourced from? And so that aha moment of going, we have hundreds, thousands of women. Just in the capital city of Addis Ababa, it's estimated that over 150,000 women are in prostitution. And then we've got this beautiful premium material that's being shipped out and made somewhere else into beautiful handbags. Why not create this opportunity right here, empower women, create jobs, and make a beautiful product? And so that's where we started. We bought some leather, we bought a few sewing machines, a few people we hired. We learned as much as we could about the leather industry. We bought bags, took them apart, just kind of did a deep dive into it. And we brought a few bags back to California. Our friends were all like, whoa, what? That's cool. Where'd you get that from? Oh, we made it in Ethiopia. No way. And that kind of rolled into the start of the business in 2014. And then where we're at today is we now have over 200 employees. We've got about an 18,000 square foot factory in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. 80% of our team is women, and we are the largest exporter of finished leather goods from Ethiopia to the world. And we still feel like we're just getting started because we believe we want to and can have the ability to impact millions of women in Ethiopia and really make a huge impact in helping to create not only a beautiful bag, which you mentioned, they are beautiful and their quality, but it's a reflection of the beauty that is behind them, the people who make them. And I think even for the people that wear them, right? We want to shop our values more today than we ever have before. And so it's really an exciting time to be building this business and seeing where the market is headed and seeing the change in the lives that we get to work with.
Wow. Well, so I'm imagining you being there and like not knowing the country. I mean, you know it a little bit, but you know how to do business there. It's a whole different thing. So I'm curious, what was the biggest challenge in launching your business there? Because I know there's other people that we've had on the show that have gone places and they said, we just had this idea and we started it. And there was all the challenges of dealing with government and corruption and all the things. So I'd love to hear it from your perspective.
Yeah, it's cross-cultural business is definitely something you got to go in eyes wide open and understand. I think it's there's always a degree of respect to the way culture and the way that business is done in that culture. And we benefited from living there. Our whole family was there. We lived there for multiple years to kind of understanding the ins and outs and language, culture, all those kind of traditions and things that come along with it. And it's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. And I think, it's interesting the privilege of coming from the US and certainly even being a white American, frankly, it gives you a lot of uh, power, right? And I think it's good to be talking about those kind of things. And it's also good to be aware of the fact that things are done different in different parts of the world. And I believe there's a reason God gave us two ears and one mouth. And I think it's important to listen. And that was something that I think I came in initially pretty like heavy with, okay, we've got to do this and we've got to have our budgeting this way. And part of it was like, Ian, sit down. Let's have a cup of coffee. I was like, I don't have time. Give me my big mug. And they're like, no, you're gonna have three cups of coffee, and we're gonna give them to you sequentially, one by one, in small cups, and we're gonna hand roast the coffee, and we're gonna hand grind the coffee, and it's gonna take a little bit to cook it. And you're like, okay, I don't have time for this. But you learn how to respect that. And then, certainly, by the way, I think we could probably benefit from more of that sometimes in our Western fast-paced life too.
Agreed.
Um, but then there's of course different business aspects of the way law is structured and the way that you can invest in a company as a foreigner. And those things there's been a lot to learn with that. And I think the key for us has been hiring really great people on the ground in Ethiopia, Ethiopians who we know have experience and we can trust, has made a huge difference for us in kind of getting to at scale, right? Initially, some of it is like, well, I've got a friend who knows so and so, right? And you can get so far with that route, but to really look at a scalable model, you've got to put some legal and professional infrastructure in place, and that it takes time. I think that's a key piece. And for us, relationship is important. And so for us, we wanted to ensure we had some great relationships that were in place. And that's, you could come in and certainly pay for part of it. But an interesting side note about Ethiopia is it's the only country in Africa that's never been colonized. And so that adds another layer to just culture and the cross-cultural work where there's a sense of pride in that fact. And so trust has to be earned, and rightly so, So it's taken us a while, but now we're in a great spot as many years as we are in, and have a great team that we can scale with.
So, talk about this sustainability and the ethical aspect of it, not just helping and empowering these women, but there's a lot that you put into it because I've done the research. There's a lot that you put into it.
Yeah, we chose to become a B Corp because we felt like that was one of the better not only marketing tools, but really the tool they have of accrediting you as a company. They really do an in-depth research to ensure that what you say is what you do, right? Which again, now we used to have this concept of greenwashing, which is what a number of companies do. It's interesting because the younger generations are pushing it even one level up and they're calling it green hushing, which is really, watch out brands, because there's people who will go out of their way to tell people just how wrong it is, something you're doing if you're doing it wrong. But it benefits the companies like ours that are doing it right. And being a B Corp is one where we look across a pretty big spectrum of environmental, social, people, all these impact layers. And then we get ranked in a score through B Corp. And our score is 112. We're one of the highest rated B Corps in the world for leather goods. And a lot of that goes into the way we look at sustainability, not just with the products we make, their use. We just launched a few months back a zero waste initiative where we took some of the pieces that might have been discarded as scrap or waste and we kind of wove it into a cool new bag, because it's all beautiful product. It's just sometimes those things are discarded. We do things around transportation for employees. We have a food program at our factory where we subsidize 90% of the cost of the meal. So employees are only paying 10%. We are working on a childcare program on site for our team. For many of our team too, they haven't even had a savings account when they come to join us. And so we're setting up savings accounts. We partner with a local bank called Enact Bank, which in Amharic, the Ethiopian language, means mother. So it's a women-run bank, and they come in and do financial literacy training for our women as well. And so there's many things that we do from that aspect. We've also had a tree planting initiative for our community where we'll go into local schools and we've planted fruit trees and things like that the community will continue to benefit from. And so, we're always looking for ways to continually improve it, from our packaging material, both in Ethiopia and then also direct to our customer as well. So very intentional about every one of those details. And it works because I think customers really see that detail. And that's what shows them there's that authenticity behind it as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Not just in the manufacturing of the product, but it's actually in taking care of the employees as well and everybody that's involved. I love that. Coming back to the B Corp, because I have had some questions about this and haven't done the research. So maybe you, because you've done it. So who does that measuring and gives you that rating, that score? Yeah.
Yeah, so B Labs is the entity essentially that does a lot of that accreditation.
Hmm.
And they put you through the ringer. I mean, they've got a very in-depth series of questions. And again, you can respond and say, we do all these things, right? We provide unicorns that get people to work, right? You could say whatever you want, but then they go, okay, well, I need to see pictures of the unicorns. Um, show me the receipt of where you bought it. Like it's very in depth in terms of that accountability. So when we talk about how many people we have and the training programs we send them through, we have to show documentation that these people have gone through the training programs, um, and so on. And so they go through kind of a multi-stage approval process of coming back, reviewing what you've submitted, asking for follow-up. I think this last one, because we got accredited first and then you have to get a renewal. I believe it's every 3 years you got to get reaccredited. And this last one took probably 3 to 6 months was the process to get it
Wow.
reapproved. And it's there's a small fraction, not everybody gets accredited as well. So I like it because it keeps us honest. It keeps us that secondary layer of accountability where we can say, hey, don't just listen to us. Here's another layer of someone else who's looked inside of our business to prove what we say is what we do.
So you set up the entity and then you go get accredited on top of that. So it is
Exactly.
so you are a for-profit company, not a
We
nonprofit
are
company. Yeah.
correct. Yeah. So we set it up as a for-profit because we knew we wanted to be at this intersection of profit and purpose. We wanted to be able to say, hey, we can grow, we can empower in the business sense. I think that business done right should change community, right? And I think that
100%.
that's where we've kind of missed that. And not that nonprofits help tremendous when it comes to need and aid or disasters or things like that. That's where it's at its best. But the sustainability business should be empowering communities and involved in helping out with these things. And so we set up our legal entity as a Delaware public benefit corporation. So we're a public benefit corporation and a certified B corporation. So
Uh,
there is both a legal entity you can go out, which as a public benefit corporation in our bylaws, we have a mandate to have a public good that our business has to be doing a public good. The B certification is another layer on top of that. So we've kind of doubled up with regards to that.
Nice. I like that. So speaking of that, I know you have gotten into fundraising and you're growing the company. Obviously, things are going very, very well. So how are you doing that? I know that you also have done some unique fundraising initiatives. So maybe give us a little idea what that's like.
Yeah, we brought in our first angel investment back in 2018, and it was more of a friends and family round. We grew really through the pandemic. Our business has been growing significantly through the pandemic. And so we've seen tremendous growth over the last handful of years. And one of the things that we traditionally, you'd probably look at a company our size of going for a more traditional Series A round where we would go into bigger institutional investors. One of our core sayings at Parker Clay is an African proverb. It says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And we use that all the time in our culture. We remind each other of that. And when we learned about this crowdfunding initiative that is a more recent addition to kind of investment and funding, it made perfect sense because we knew we could, in essence, kind of democratize the investment world and say, if just as we are wanting to create opportunities for these women to be part of our team and become a world-class stitcher and become a part of a world-class team, that we could also invite the public who has helped us grow this company in buying and purchasing bags, but to take it to that next level and invite the public to join us in it as an investor in our company. And so we looked at this, it's called a Regulation A plus, and you can go to our website, invest.parkerclay.com, and learn more about what we're doing. And you can invest at a minimum of $500 and be part and be a shareholder in the company and be part of what we're building in really changing the face of fashion. And it's cool because for, a lot of companies, the public generally doesn't get to be investing at a lower level unless it becomes public. And so we are kind of inviting people at an earlier stage of our business to invest. And I think that's an exciting, concept for us, is that as we, continue to see our growth and opportunity in front of us, that we can all benefit from that, not only in seeing the impact work that we're doing, but also from an investment standpoint. So yeah, so we just launched that a few months back. We're in the middle of it right now, and would welcome the public to check it out.
Yeah, how's that going?
We had a warehouse sale at our warehouse in Santa Barbara a few weeks back, and someone came up to me and said, "Hey, I'm an investor in Parker Clay." And it hit me because that was exactly what we wanted. We wanted our community to be part of this. And she was so excited to share that with me because she said, "You know what? I was asking for a birthday gift, and my husband saw what you guys were doing on the investment front, and he bought me shares as a gift." And I was like, "Your husband's amazing. You're incredible. This is so exciting." And we've had so many stories like that of the public who just go, "We see what you're doing. We see the opportunity. We're excited to be part of it." And we've had some people who've also invested a few $100,000 in this round who just go, "We love this business opportunity, also love the impact." And so I think that we're seeing people from, the $500 range to the $500,000 range kind of look at it and say, "We want to be part of this with you." And we are really excited. We're really excited about what we can do at this point in the business with the community. Because I think that's the key to success here. Is it is about people, is it about the community that can really, vote with your dollar, not only in buying, but investing. And what we can do together is what we're really excited about. So yeah, we're really just kind of getting warmed up, and already it's been an incredible response.
That's awesome. Well, I'd love to hear some of the stories of the impact that you've made. Before we do that, because we're kind of still on this topic of raising money and revenue and all that kind of stuff, is that I'd love to hear how you have been able to make it profitable and sustain that profitability while doing all these other programs, that you've included, right, as part of the ethical, sustainable business practices.
Yeah, and it what there's a few things I think at play when you think about that. So we've been growing significantly, and so every year has not been profitable for us. So that's I think a key piece, is that there's some years where we've been able to be profitable, and others that we haven't. And as we take on more capital expense, like we've built out this huge factory in Ethiopia, that's required some investment to be able to get it to that level and to grow. But pursuing profitable growth is the mindset that we have. If you talk to anyone on my team, if they say, "What's the theme for right now?" they're going to hear me say profitable growth, because sustainability is critical. And what we don't want to do is be a flash in the pan and experience just crazy growth without the underpinnings and the strength of the foundation of it. So the other thing, that early years in Parker Clay in Ethiopia, we were kind of timid to spend too much on marketing, because we almost didn't want it to grow as fast, because I wanted to ensure that the foundation of manufacturing, supply chain, everything on the ground in Ethiopia was really solid. And that's where we now have it. where we've got probably quadruple the capacity that we're currently producing. And so now is the time for us where we know we can lean into the market and expand, where we can know we'll also fulfill those orders as well. And, I think the impact and everything else that we do, I think for some people think that, oh, if you do a lot of good, then you can't be a for profitable or high growth business. And I don't think that's the case. We've invested really capital efficiency has been a big part of how we've invested. We've built the largest, manufacturer of finished leather goods in Ethiopia to the world. So obviously that's going to take a little bit of capital to get up and established to going. But the benefit as we look at it in the coming years is that there's huge opportunity for growth at a very capital friendly environment where we will be profitable.
Yeah. So tell us some of your favorite stories.
We have another
Be
3
here all
hours.
day. Yeah.
All day, all day. Recently, one of my favorite stories, uh, just this incredible woman, her name's Marta. And in our factory, if you were to come in, you would see kind of these pods where you've got a lead stitcher and 2 to 3 assistants that are with her. And one of our pods, we kept having a quality issue from this one team. And so we went over to the lead stitcher, her name is Roman, and said, Roman, what's going on? Why do we keep having these quality defects? And she said, I think Marta has an eye problem. And we went, oh, well, okay, let's go check it out. She wasn't wearing glasses at all. So we took her to an optometrist and they said, yeah, she's definitely got an eye problem. And I asked for the prescription that they sent to me. I'm not an optometrist, so I don't know. I went to a friend in California who is, and he's like, Ian, this is not good. I was like, well, how bad is not good? And he goes, Ian, she can't see more than 5 inches from her face. And I went, I don't even know how. Marta's 20 years old. How have you lived? And Addis is a busy city in Ethiopia. Get around and all the challenges that are there without glasses on just blew me away. So we got her glasses in Ethiopia, and they were thick. Like you can imagine, really thick, but Coke bottle glasses they call them. And so she was wearing those every day, and we got her. Reached out to Warby Parker, which is another glasses company, and they sent us some thinner, more stylish lenses with her prescription. And we brought them to her on one of our recent trips. And we started asking her, how for 20 years have you gotten around? And she said, well, my eyesight has progressively gotten worse. So it hasn't been as bad as it is today, but it's been hard, and hard sometimes it's really hard by a lot of standards. And you could tell she was kind of getting emotional. And she said, Ian, it's the first time in my life that I can really see, but it's the first time in my life I feel seen. And I was like, oh, like that. I mean, it still gives me goosebumps today because it's like, if there's one thing that means the most, it's that kind of story is that she feels seen. Like, really? 20 years and you haven't feeling seen. And so it's such a pleasure to be, those stories are just across our factory. And whenever I see her and she's working hard and she's got her cool stylish glasses on, she's also kind of got this, her smile has changed. When the first day she came in, her eyes were down and she was kind of hunched over. The confidence wasn't there. And now she knows that she's seen and her shoulders are back, her chin is up, and she's smiling. And it's like that transformation is huge. And we get to make bags for the world that are beautiful, that get to transform the lives of Marta. And I think that is something that for most consumers, we've thought we have to compromise. We buy things that we like, that look good, that are cool and stylish, and then we donate over here. It's not bad, but what if we found a place where we could do both in one, where we wore things that represented that? And I think we haven't been given those options as consumers. And that's something with Parker Clay that we want to show you that you don't need to compromise, that you can have both. And so, and for me, of course, as the vision of this company from the very day one was to see women like Marta thrive. And so hearing those stories, seeing those stories unfold in front of us are all the reasons why we do this.
Yeah, I can imagine. I can imagine, the trajectory of that person's life. I mean, she's 20 years old, and just where she's going to even be in 20 years from now, and just because of the what you've done and how that impacts the people around her as well. The ripple effect is you can't calculate it. So that is awesome. And that is, I can feel your heart that that's really what you're doing. And I think about the future of fashion, and I think it goes for any industry. If we could take that approach to everything that we're doing, we can make a difference. We can, as somebody once said, have fun, make money, make a difference. You know, Done. Let's do that. So yeah, it's awesome, Ian. Thank you so much.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So your website is parkerclay.com. They can go and they can find bags. They can order them. How long do they take? I think I was looking actually on there today and picking one out. And I think it was like a couple of days. So are they coming? They're coming from Ethiopia to the
We
US, or do you have some here? You said something at a warehouse.
Yeah, we do. We have our factory in Ethiopia. We ship everything to our warehouse. So we have our own warehouse in California, and we do all of our own fulfillment from California. So it's very fast. Usually we get people emailing us all the time going, I just ordered this. How did it get to me so fast? So we definitely pride ourselves in getting it to people as quickly as possible. But right now, yeah, it could be anywhere from a day or a couple days to get it to you. So you can order on our website. Every product we've aligned with hours of empowerment. So if you go on and pick the Miramar backpack, you can look on there and see how many hours of empowerment that has created for a woman in Ethiopia. And so you can do that. Great gifting. We do a lot of company gifting. We just did a deal with American Express and Delta and NBC and things like that for events and things like that as well. Works great for obviously birthday gifts, or you've been working hard, Nicole. It's time to treat yourself too. So that can happen.
Well, there's a lot of women walking around in Southern California with fancy bags with very well-known brands on there. And when I looked at yours, I was like, wow, this is top notch. So better even than what I've seen lately in the store. So you mentioned I'm curious about the hours because I saw that, this bag for 1,400 empowerment hours. How do you calculate that?
We look at it, we both calculate as a business. We since we are the manufacturer, we look at the amount of time that goes into creating a bag from, it getting cut to final stitching and quality controlled. We also factor in the time we go and source from the tanneries and other pieces of it as well. And so we have this kind of roll up where we look at the total hours that go into making a bag and the whole ecosystem of that bag getting to you. So
Nice.
yeah, it's something that we continually look at and come back to. But it's a big impact because it really goes beyond just even the women at our factory. It's the transportation companies in Ethiopia. It's the shipping, logistics. It's the tanneries. So there's so many pieces it touches, and that's where we see the impact in community going beyond just even our group of people, but saying, hey, this has ripple effects out. One of the things that is now been proven over and over is that when you invest in women, they reinvest about 90% of their income back into their families and community. So when we look at making a community impact, it's essential we're investing in women.
Yeah. Well, I always say that leaders of transformation take action. So, ladies, if you're listening out there, go get yourself a bag. This is your license to go shopping and make a
I approve.
difference. Tell your husband, say, honey, or your whoever your significant other, and just say, or tell yourself, you know what, when you're having a hard time justifying, because I have a hard time spending money on myself, is that you know that you're making a difference with that. And so it's awesome. Ian, thank you
We
so much.
we had we yeah no, and we have so many stories too of women who bought bags for other women. And I just put a post up recently around Mother's Day for hey, if there's anybody in your community who you know would just love a little bit of an extra love gift. And so a few women sent me just these really incredible stories, and we sent them some little gifts. Or we've had people who just buy their friends gifts. We had a group of women in Santa Barbara who their friend, this woman was going through her son was going through cancer, and she got one of our backpacks as a gift from 5 or 6 women around her. And she said, I knew as I was wearing this backpack that I had a group of women who had my back. And I'm like, so there's just so
So
much
good.
power in what we make, is that you can look good and it's functional and it's beautiful and the quality is all there, but it has such a deeper story that I feel like that's the piece that we want to carry.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. Again, thank you, Ian, so much for coming and just sharing a little bit, kind of peeling back the layers so we understand a little bit more about the business, the background of it, your heart around it, of course, most importantly, and what you're doing. I think it's hopefully my goal is that it inspires others, even in the fashion industry, but not just in the fashion industry and other industries as well, to look at ways that they can be profitable, make a huge impact, and do it in a way that is really viable in the marketplace. So and makes a huge difference, a huge lasting impact. So hopefully, I hope everyone is getting inspired, and would love to hear your stories. Everyone who's listening and watching, love to hear your stories. So go on leadersoftransformation.com and tell us, how this has impacted you, or if you have ideas, and if you need support, we'd love to be there to support you along your journey. And of course, go check out these bags, parkerclay.com. We'll make sure all the links are in the show notes. If you're looking to invest, it's a $500 minimum. So that's invest at parkerclay.com, and get involved. Get involved. Study their model even, and figure out how they're doing what they're doing. And maybe you've had an idea and you didn't know how to do it, but they've figured out some things that you can learn from them and apply to what it is that you want to do. So I encourage you to do that. Thank you for tuning in, and we look forward to seeing you next week on another episode of the Leaders of Transformation.